My name is Bianca Harrow. I am 29 years old. For a long time, I believed I had everything a woman could want. A loving husband, a family that seemed to care, and a career that was just beginning to shine. I thought I was safe in my home, safe in my marriage. But I was wrong. I used to wake up each morning with gratitude. Conrad Harrow, my husband, would kiss my forehead before leaving for work. Evelyn Moore, my sister-in-law, often stopped by with coffee and stories. I felt lucky, almost blessed. But life has a way of whispering warnings, little signs, subtle signs, that only later you realize were trying to save you. It started with the headaches, subtle at first, a dizziness that came and went, a strange metallic taste on my tongue after certain meals. I told myself it was stress, maybe exhaustion from long hours at work. I was climbing quickly in my career as a marketing director. The pressure was real, but deep down, I knew. This was not just fatigue. One afternoon, sunlight poured through the kitchen window. Conrad Harrow handed me a cup of coffee. He smiled the way he always did, gentle, reassuring. But when I lifted the cup, I smelled it. A faint metallic odor, sharp, unnatural, like rust. My stomach twisted. I whispered to myself, "This isn't right." And I set the cup back down carefully. I pretended my phone was ringing. "Excuse me, I need to take this," I said. My voice was steady, but my hands trembled. Evelyn Moore glanced up from the dining table. "Another client, Bianca?" She teased, half smiling. I forced a laugh. "Yes. You know how it is." When I stepped out into the hallway, my heart pounded. I pressed my back to the wall, listening. Their words were muffled, casual, almost too casual. It sounded rehearsed, like actors on a stage. And then it hit me. That coffee wasn't just coffee. It was meant to hurt me, slow me down, maybe worse. I stood there in silence, breathing carefully, every nerve in my body screaming. I had two choices: drink it, pretend I trusted them, or fight back in silence, play along until the truth revealed itself. When I returned, I picked up the cup again. This time, my hands didn't shake. I smiled at Evelyn Moore, almost sweetly. With a small gesture, I slid the cup toward her. "You try it first," I said. I forced amusement into my voice. "Conrad Harrow says he's been experimenting with a new blend." She hesitated, just for a second, enough for me to see the flicker of unease in her eyes. Then she laughed and took a sip. Inside, my thoughts screamed, "God, please, let this prove me right." That moment changed everything. The house that once felt safe now felt like a stage. Every smile was a mask, every word a dagger. My husband, the man I trusted with my life, and Evelyn Moore, the woman I called sister. They were playing a game darker than I had ever imagined. Looking back, I understand. They thought they were clever, keeping me sick just enough to control me, to dim my light at work, to sabotage the career that threatened them both. But what they never expected was that I was already suspicious, already watching, already gathering the truth piece by piece. That same day, Conrad Harrow asked, "Are you feeling better, Bianca?" His eyes searched my face. I forced myself to nod. "Yes, much better." But inside, my stomach turned. His words no longer sounded like concern. They sounded like calculation. The betrayal was sharper than any poison. I had built a life with this man, shared secrets, dreams, promises of forever. And now, every kiss, every touch felt hollow. What was real anymore? I remember standing at the sink, pouring the untouched coffee down the drain. whispering to myself, "You will not destroy me. Not like this." In the window, my reflection looked different, harder, stronger, a woman ready to fight. I knew then, if I wanted to survive, I could not wait for rescue. No doctor, no police officer, no friend could see what was really happening inside my home. I had to save myself. And so, my story began. Not a story of love or trust, but of betrayal and survival. Not of weakness, but of strength. The poison in my cup was real, but the poison in their hearts was deadlier. I chose to fight back, to watch, to wait, to turn their trap into my revenge. And this is how it all unfolded. The afternoon was quiet, too quiet. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, striping the table with golden bars. Plates clinked, forks scraped against porcelain. But beneath it all, there was a heaviness, a silence that pressed against my chest. Conrad laughed at something Evelyn said. His voice sounded normal, but to me, it rang hollow, too rehearsed, too smooth. I sat there watching the steam rise from the coffee pot in the center of the table, that innocent swirl of white mist carrying something darker beneath it. Conrad turned to me suddenly. His smile was soft, familiar, the kind of smile that once made me feel loved. "Bianca," he said gently, "let me pour this for you." He reached for the pot. His hands were steady, too steady. The liquid streamed into the cup, dark and rich. When he placed it before me, I smelled it instantly. That metallic tang, sharp, unnatural, almost like iron. My stomach tightened. My hands went cold. "There you go," Conrad said. "Just the way you like it." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. Her lips curled into something between a smile and a smirk. "Conrad makes the best coffee," she teased. "Better than mine." I forced a small laugh. "Maybe," I said quietly, but my heart was pounding. I reached for the cup, my fingers wrapped around the warm ceramic. The heat spread through my skin, but it felt like fire. I lifted it toward my lips. The smell grew stronger, suffocating me. I could almost taste the bitterness before it touched my mouth. Then, a sound. A sudden, sharp ping. My phone. I lowered the cup quickly. The screen lit up, a message from my friend. Something ordinary, something harmless. But to me, it was everything. A lifeline, a reason to stall. "Excuse me," I said, forcing my voice steady. "I need to answer this." Conrad chuckled. "Always working," he muttered. Then he stood. "Back in a minute. Bathroom." He walked away. Calm, casual. Too casual. I stared at the cup on the table. Steam still rising. Dark liquid shimmering in the light. I typed a quick reply to my friend, but my mind was spinning. Every sense screamed at me not to drink. When I reached for the cup again, I froze. There, on the saucer beside it, a fly, small, black, still, its wings bent, its body curled, dead. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. My breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled. I whispered to myself, "Oh my God!" The metallic smell, the dead insect, the sudden trip to the bathroom. This wasn't coincidence. This was deliberate. Evelyn's voice broke the silence. "Bianca, aren't you going to drink?" Her tone was light, almost playful, but there was something behind it. Sharp, eager. I looked up at her, forced a smile. "Of course," I said, but I didn't lift the cup. Instead, I pushed my chair back slowly. I'll just make a quick call, I said softly. Work? You know, I stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to my ear, pretending to talk. Inside, my pulse raced. Every nerve screamed at me to run. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because I knew now, if I left, if I ran, they would know. And if they knew, they would try again. Smarter, harder, deadlier. I leaned against the wall. I listened. The faint sound of Conrad washing his hands in the bathroom, Evelyn shifting in her chair. I returned to the table, phone still in my hand. I sat down, my movements calm, controlled. I looked at the two cups, almost identical, almost. In one small, careful motion, I switched them. My cup slid toward Evelyn. Hers slid toward me. It was so simple, so fast. No one noticed. I smiled. Sorry about that, I said lightly. Clients can be demanding. Evelyn laughed softly. Always busy, Bianca. She lifted the cup. The one Conrad had poured for me. My chest tightened. I held my breath. Her lips touched the rim. She drank. The taste hit her almost instantly. I saw the flicker in her eyes, the twitch of her hand, the unease she tried to hide. Conrad stepped back into the room. His eyes darted to her cup, then to me. Too fast, too sharp. His smile faltered. For just a second. And in that second, I knew I was right. I wasn't imagining it. The danger was real. The trap they had set for me was now in her hands. And in that moment, one thought echoed in my mind. This isn't over, but the game has begun. Evelyn raised the cup to her lips. I watched. Every second felt like an hour. The rim touched her mouth, and the liquid slid inside. For a moment, nothing. Just silence. The ordinary sound of a clock ticking in the hall. Then, the change. Her hand twitched. Just once. Her brow furrowed. She blinked hard, as if her vision blurred. A soft laugh escaped her lips, shaky, uncertain. That's strong, she whispered, trying to set the cup back down. But her fingers fumbled. The china clinked sharply against the saucer. I didn't move. I sat frozen, my eyes wide but my face still. Inside, my chest thundered. Conrad's smile faded. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted between me and Evelyn. She coughed once, then again. Her body stiffened, as though something clawed at her from the inside. I don't, she stammered, one hand gripping her stomach. Her other hand clawed at the tablecloth. Her knuckles turned white. Her breath came fast, shallow, broken. Sweat purled across her forehead. Her lips trembled. Conrad, something's wrong. Her chair scraped backward as she tried to stand, but her legs buckled beneath her. The table shook. The glass of water beside her spilled over, dripping across the floor. I inhaled slowly, controlled. But inside, I was fire. This was it. The truth bleeding into the open. Are you all right, Evelyn? I asked softly. My tone was calm, almost gentle, but it was calculated, every word carefully placed. Conrad shot me a look, his eyes wide. Fear flashed across them, raw and unguarded. He rushed to Evelyn's side, catching her shoulders, but his words betrayed him. No, no, this isn't right. It wasn't meant for you. My breath caught. There it was, the confession. Not meant for you. The words echoed through the room, sharp and undeniable. I leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean, Conrad?" I whispered. My voice trembled, but not from fear, from certainty. He shook his head quickly, too quickly. I didn't mean that," he stammered. She's sick." But his face gave him away. The panic, the way his eyes refused to meet mine. Evelyn gasped, choking. Her body jerked, knees hitting the floor with a dull thud. Her fingers clawed at the air as if she could grab hold of something solid. "Conrad, please, help me," she rasped, her voice broken. He knelt beside her, frantic, but again, his words cut deeper than her cries. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered harshly, shaking her shoulders. "Not like this. Not to you." The air seemed to collapse around me, every sound muffled except his voice. "Not to you." I slid my hand quietly into my pocket, fingers trembling, but steady enough. I pressed the screen of my phone. The light flickered on. The camera opened. Recording. My hand gripped the phone like a lifeline. Every movement silent, hidden beneath the chaos. Evelyn retched, her cries filling the room. Her nails scratched against the hardwood floor. Her breath rattled, desperate and shallow. Conrad's voice cracked. "This isn't what we planned. She wasn't supposed to." I swallowed hard. The words stung. Planned. Supposed to. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't chance. It was intent. And now, I had proof. I raised my eyes slowly, watching them. My husband, the man I once trusted. His face pale, his mask shattered. My sister-in-law, writhing in pain, the venom meant for me coursing through her body. And me, sitting silent, phone glowing in my palm, capturing every word, every sound, every broken truth. "Conrad," I said quietly, my voice low but sharp. "Who was it meant for?" He froze. His mouth opened, then closed again. His lips trembled, but no words came. Evelyn screamed then, her body convulsing, dragging his attention back to her. He clutched her arms, panic ripping through his voice. "Evelyn, stay with me. Please, you weren't supposed to drink it." I felt my chest tighten. Not with fear this time, but with clarity, with strength. The mask was gone. The truth was bleeding into the open, and I had caught it all. Every broken word, every desperate confession, sealed inside the lens of my phone. The trap they built for me, the poison they placed in my cup. It was now the weapon in my hands, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't the victim, not anymore. The sirens screamed through the air, loud, relentless. Every wail carved through my chest like a blade. I sat in the back of the ambulance pressed against the wall. Evelyn Moore lay on the stretcher before me, her face ashen, her body trembling, her breath shallow. Her hands twitched as if she were fighting something inside her. The paramedics worked quickly. One strapped a mask over her mouth. Another inserted an IV line, fluid dripping fast into her veins. "Blood pressure's dropping," one muttered. "She's tachycardic," said another. I hugged myself tightly, not because I cared for her, not after what she had done, but because I knew this was supposed to be me. The bitter coffee, the metallic taste, the dead fly by the rim, all of it meant for me. The ambulance jolted as it turned a corner. I gripped the bench, my nails digging into the vinyl. I forced myself to breathe. Slow, even, steady. Conrad Harrow sat across from me. His eyes never left Evelyn Moore's body, but his expression was wrong. It wasn't grief. It wasn't love. It was panic. He whispered under his breath, over and over again. No, no, not her, not her. The words clawed at my ears. Not her. The paramedics didn't notice, but I did. I lowered my eyes, pressed my phone tighter in my hand. I had captured everything already, but I wanted more. More words, more truth, more cracks in his mask. The ambulance screeched to a stop. The doors flew open. The rush of cold air struck my face. "Move! Move!" a voice shouted. The stretcher rolled out, wheels rattling against the pavement, then onto the smooth tile of the hospital floor. The fluorescent lights above flickered as we passed, bright, blinding. I felt like we were being swallowed whole by the sterile halls. Doctors and nurses swarmed Evelyn Moore, their voices sharp, clipped. "Get her to Bay 3. Check for toxins. Draw blood now." Conrad Harrow pushed forward, but a nurse held out her hand. "Sir, please step back." He froze. His fists clenched. He looked like he might explode. I stayed a few steps behind, calm, too calm, because I had to be. The curtain closed around Evelyn Moore's stretcher, her cries muffled. The machines beeped in rhythm with her faltering heart. I turned toward the wall, pressed my hand against the cold paint. My chest heaved once, then stilled. This was it, my chance, my proof. A doctor in a white coat approached me. "Are you family?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm her sister-in-law, and I know why this happened." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I glanced down the hall. Conrad Harrow was pacing, his head in his hands, his body rigid with nervous energy. He looked like a trapped animal, dangerous, unpredictable. I leaned closer to the doctor. "There's something you need to know. This wasn't an accident. She drank something. Something that was never meant for her." His face hardened. "Are you saying this was deliberate?" "Yes," I breathed. And then, quickly, I told him everything. The headaches that came and went, the sudden dizzy spells, the metallic taste in my drinks, the way Conrad Harrow insisted on pouring my coffee, the way Evelyn Moore always watched me, smiling just a little too long. His expression shifted from surprise to disbelief, and finally to grim understanding. "I'll have to notify the authorities immediately," he said. "Please do," I whispered, and I lifted my phone, the screen glowing faintly in my hand. "I have proof." It didn't take long. 2 police officers arrived, tall, steady, radios crackling at their belts. They approached me quietly. One asked, "Ma'am, can you tell us what happened?" "Yes," I said, and I showed them. I pressed play. Conrad Harrow's voice spilled into the sterile hallway. "This wasn't meant for you. This wasn't the plan. You weren't supposed to drink it." The officers' faces changed as the words played. Their posture stiffened, alert, focused. They glanced toward Conrad Harrow, who still paced at the far end of the corridor. "Where is your husband now?" one officer asked sharply. I turned my head. I looked down the hallway, but he was gone. My heart stopped. The space where he had stood was empty, the echo of his footsteps already fading. He had slipped away, through the chaos, through the noise. He had vanished like smoke. The officers cursed under their breath. "Find him, now!" They moved quickly, radios buzzing, voices clipped with urgency. But I stayed still, frozen in place, because I knew Conrad Harrow better than anyone. He wasn't just running from them. He was running from me. I pressed my back to the wall, closed my eyes for one brief moment. I whispered to myself, "Run if you want, Conrad Harrow, but I hold everything now, and sooner or later, you will fall." The beeping of the monitors behind the curtain grew louder. The nurses rushed past, The officers spread out through the hall, and I stood alone, still, steady, for the first time, no longer a victim, because I had proof. I had the truth, and he had nowhere left to hide. The hospital felt heavier with every breath. The walls hummed with fluorescent light. I sat with my phone in my hand, the recording still glowing on the screen. Conrad's voice spilled out again. "This wasn't meant for you. This wasn't the plan. You weren't supposed to drink it." Each word twisted like a blade, but this time the blade wasn't in me. It was in him. Evidence. Proof. Detective Laura Mitchell stood close, scribbling quickly into her notepad. Beside her, Officer Daniel Harris kept his eyes sharp on the hall. I scrolled further through my phone. "There's more," I said softly. My voice shook, but my words were clear. I showed them the texts. Conrad telling me not to attend meetings, to rest, to stay home. At first, they sounded like concern, but in hindsight, they were commands, orders designed to keep me out of the way. Then I unfolded my notes. Messy handwriting, dates, times, every headache, every dizzy spell, every fainting moment, each one tied to meals and drinks he, or Evelyn, had given me. Mitchell studied the pages. "You tracked everything," she said quietly. "Yes," I breathed, because I knew something was wrong, and I couldn't afford to be wrong about this. She nodded once. The weight in her eyes told me she believed me. Then Harris's voice rang out from behind the curtain. "Detective, you'll want to see this." We followed him inside Evelyn's bay. She lay unconscious on the bed, her skin waxy, her breath ragged. Machines kept her alive, but her silence screamed louder than anything she could have said. Her small locker door hung open. Harris reached in with gloved hands. From the corner, he lifted a small glass vial. The liquid inside shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light. A strange, cloudy substance. He twisted the cap. A sharp odor filled the air. Not coffee, not medicine, but that smell. That metallic tang. The same scent that haunted my cups. The same bitterness that lingered on my tongue every time I grew weak. Harris's expression darkened. "This isn't vitamins or supplements," he muttered. "This is poison. Strong. Metallic. Just like what she described." Mitchell leaned closer, her jaw tight. "This is enough to dose someone over and over again. Enough to keep her weak until the end." My stomach turned. That bottle had been sitting just feet away from Evelyn as she plotted with my husband. A tiny vial that had nearly destroyed me. And then, footsteps echoed down the hall. Sharp, quick, urgent. I turned, and my blood ran cold. Conrad Harrow. His shirt clung to him with sweat. His eyes darted from me to the vial in Harris's hand, to Evelyn's pale body. His face twisted. "That's not mine," he snapped. "It's hers. Evelyn kept that, not me." Mitchell stepped forward, her voice steady. "Stay where you are, Mr. Carter." But Conrad ignored her, his eyes locked on me. "Bianca, you have to believe me," he said, his voice wild. "She's the one who wanted this. She made me do it." I rose slowly, my phone still recording, the evidence glowing red in my hand. "Then why," I asked softly, "did you panic when she drank from my cup? Why, Conrad?" His lips parted, his jaw clenched, and then he broke. Words spilled out of him, venomous and desperate. "You were in the way. You and your career, your constant success. Do you know what that does to a man, Bianca?" The words cut deeper than the poison ever could. Every syllable was a knife through the life we had built together. The man I had once loved, the man I had trusted with everything, was confessing not just to betrayal, but to resentment that had been festering for years. My chest burned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I let the silence grow heavy around him. I let him hear his own voice, because for the first time, the truth was no longer hidden. "You wanted me to fail," I whispered. "You wanted me broken, begging, small. You didn't want a wife. You wanted a victim." His face twisted with rage. "No, I wanted you to need me again. I wanted you to stop outshining everyone. Stop outshining me." His confession hit me like a wave. All those moments, the smiles, the touches, the promises, collapsed like glass. I felt the sting of betrayal sharper than ever, but beneath it all, I felt something else. Relief. Because now it was out. The poison wasn't just in the cup. It was in his heart, his words, his truth. And he had spilled it all. Mitchell's voice cut through his shouting. "Conrad Harrow, you are under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy." Harris pulled his arms back, the cuffs clicking tight around his wrists. Conrad thrashed once, shouting, "This isn't over, Bianca. You hear me? It's not over." But I stepped forward, my eyes steady, my voice clear. "No, Conrad, it is over. For you, it's over." They dragged him down the hallway. His protests echoed, hollow, fading with every step. I sank into the chair, trembling. Tears burned at the corner of my eyes, but I let none of them fall, because I wasn't broken anymore. I was angry. I was hurt. But above all, I was free. The vial with its metallic stench sat in evidence bags. My phone still glowed with his words, and my heart, though fractured, beat stronger than it ever had before. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I knew the truth had set me free. The hospital had grown quieter. The chaos of Conrad being dragged away was gone, leaving only the steady hum of machines and the faint murmur of nurses in the hall. I sat at the edge of Evelyn's bed. The curtains swayed with every draft of cold air. The fluorescent light above flickered, bathing the room in a pale, sickly glow. Evelyn looked small now, weak, her face pale against the white sheets, her breath shallow, rattling through the mask pressed to her face. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I simply watched her, and she refused to look at me. Then her eyes flickered open. She stared at the ceiling for a moment before they shifted, reluctantly, to me. Her lips trembled, her voice cracked. "You shouldn't be here." Her words were faint, but sharp enough to cut through the silence. I leaned closer, my voice steady. "I need to hear you say it, Evelyn. I need to hear the truth from you." She swallowed hard, her throat working. Her eyes darted to the evidence bag sitting on the counter. The small vial glinted under the light. Her lips parted again. "It wasn't supposed to go like this," she whispered. She wasn't supposed to drink it." Her eyes closed for a moment, then opened again, filled with something dark. Resentment, regret, envy, all tangled together. Her voice grew harsher. "We planned it, Conrad and I. We didn't want you dead, not at first. Just weak, sick, too tired to climb, too sick to take those meetings, too weak to keep winning." The words fell into the air like stones, each one heavier than the last. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Every dizzy spell, every fainting collapse, every morning when I forced myself to smile through the nausea, all of it had been them. "Why?" I asked quietly. The word broke in my throat. "Why me, Evelyn? What did I do to you?" Her eyes glistened. But it wasn't sorrow that filled them, it was bitterness. "Because you had everything," she hissed weakly. "You walked into the office and people saw you first. Clients chose you. Contracts fell into your lap. Every time I tried, you were already ahead. I hated it. I hated watching you take everything while I was invisible." Her voice cracked. "I wanted you to feel small. Just once. I wanted you to lose." I stared at her, my chest burning. The woman who smiled at family dinners, who called herself my sister, had carried this venom inside her all along. "And Conrad?" I forced out. "What did he want?" Her laugh was jagged, bitter. "He wanted control. He told me if you were weak enough, you'd need him again. You'd cling to him. You'd stop shining so bright and just stay in the shadows with him. That's all he wanted, to own you." My breath caught. For a moment, the room tilted, every memory of his hands pouring me coffee, his voice urging me to rest, his smile as I grew dizzy. It all turned to ash in my mind. I whispered, almost to myself, "He didn't love me. He just wanted to break me." Evelyn's eyes flickered with something, pity maybe, or just exhaustion. "I never thought you'd notice," she murmured. "You were always so busy, so distracted. I thought you'd just keep drinking, keep getting weaker. I thought we were clever." Her lips trembled. Her voice dropped to a rasp. "But you saw through it." Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, not because I pitied her, but because the betrayal was finally laid bare. Every piece of the puzzle was on the table now, cruel and undeniable. I leaned closer, my voice quiet but sharp. "You thought wrong, Evelyn. You thought I was blind, but I saw you. Both of you." The silence between us stretched. Only the steady beeping of the monitor filled the room. Then Detective Mitchell stepped inside. She had been listening. Her pen scratched against her notepad, every word Evelyn had spoken captured. "Evelyn Moore," she said firmly, "your confession has been recorded. You will be charged for your part in this conspiracy." Evelyn closed her eyes. Her tears slid down her cheeks, soaking the pillow beneath her. There was no fight left in her voice, no denial. I stood, my legs steady for the first time in months. I looked down at her one last time. She refused to meet my eyes. The envy that had poisoned her, the control that had twisted Conrad, it was all out now, exposed, naked, useless. I whispered, my voice firm, "It's over, Evelyn. You lost." And with that, I turned toward the door. The weight on my chest finally lifted. The truth was mine, and so was my freedom. The courthouse loomed above me like a monument carved from stone. Its steps were wide, heavy beneath my feet, and every echo of my heels felt like a drumbeat of finality. Inside, the air was cold. Not from the temperature, but from the weight of justice. Marble floors reflected the overhead lights. Wooden benches creaked as the gallery filled. The faint murmur of voices carried like a restless tide until the gavel silenced them. I sat near the front, my hands clenched together in my lap. Beside me, Detective Laura Mitchell gave me a nod, steady and grounding. I inhaled deeply, trying to still the storm inside me. The bailiff's voice rang out. "All rise. Court is now in session, the Honorable Judge William Thompson presiding." Everyone stood. The judge entered, his robe flowing, his expression stern. We sat again, and the weight of the room settled like chains on my shoulders. Then the doors at the back opened, and they appeared. Conrad Harrow, once my husband, now a prisoner. He wore a gray suit, but the cuffs around his wrists betrayed him. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. He searched the room until his eyes found me. For a second, I saw something there. Anger, fear, perhaps even regret, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by cold calculation. Evelyn Moore followed, flanked by guards. She looked smaller than I remembered, her shoulders hunched, her eyes red-rimmed. She wouldn't look at me. Not yet. They sat at the defense table, separated but bound by the same fate. The prosecutor rose. His voice was sharp, deliberate, slicing through the air like a blade. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of impulse. This is not an act of sudden rage. This is a conspiracy, calculated, deliberate, and sustained over months. A plan designed to weaken and destroy Bianca Harrow, orchestrated by the two defendants seated before you." He laid out the evidence piece by piece, the texts, the notes I had kept, the recording of Conrad's voice, his own words damning him, and finally, the small glass vial pulled from Evelyn's locker, filled with that cloudy liquid carrying the sharp metallic tang. When the recording played in open court, the gallery fell silent. Conrad's voice filled the chamber, echoing off the marble walls. "This wasn't meant for you. This wasn't the plan. You weren't supposed to drink it." I watched his face as he heard himself. He flinched. His mask slipped, if only for a moment. Then Evelyn's confession was read aloud, her own words, spoken from her hospital bed. How she had envied me. How Conrad wanted to break me down until I needed him again. How together they decided to poison me slowly, keeping me sick, keeping me small. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. The gallery shifted, people leaning forward to catch every word. The betrayal was almost too much for them to comprehend. The prosecutor's voice rang out again. This was not clumsy. It was not careless. It was methodical, cold. They dosed her little by little, masking it as illness, knowing it would strip her strength and her chances of advancement. They watched her collapse. They watched her suffer, and they did nothing but plan for more. Then came the defense. Weak, desperate. They painted Evelyn as sick, pressured, manipulated by Conrad. They painted Conrad as a man lost in jealousy, blinded by fear of losing his wife. They begged for leniency. They spoke of desperation, not malice. But their words were hollow against the mountain of truth. When it was my turn, I stood. The entire room seemed to lean toward me. My knees trembled, but my voice held. I told them everything. How the metallic taste haunted me. How the dizziness stole days of my life. How I sat at my desk, the world spinning, thinking I was weak, broken, losing my mind. And how the man I trusted most poured it into my cup with a smile. My voice cracked once, but I did not cry. I looked straight at the jury, at the judge, and finally at Conrad and Evelyn, and I said, "They weren't just poisoning my body. They were poisoning my life, my trust, my freedom, and they did it with intent, with patience, with calculation. I cannot forgive that, and I should not have to." The silence afterward was suffocating, but it was not silence of doubt. It was silence of truth. The judge's voice broke it. His words were steady, commanding. "Conrad Harrow, Evelyn Moore, this court finds you guilty of conspiracy and attempted murder." He paused, his eyes sweeping over the courtroom. This was no moment of madness. This was not a single mistake. This was deliberate, carried out over weeks and months. Each act designed to keep the victim sick, weak, and dependent. Such cruelty cannot go unanswered. He raised the gavel, his voice thunderous. "For that reason, this court imposes the maximum sentence allowable under the law." The gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. The air thickened with the weight of justice. Conrad's face twisted in fury. He leaned forward, his voice a hiss through clenched teeth. "This isn't over, Bianca." But his words rang hollow. The clink of chains around his wrists was louder than his threats. Evelyn sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking. She looked at me once, her eyes red and wet, pleading for something I would never give. Not pity, not forgiveness, nothing. The gavel struck. The trial was done. I sat back, my breath finally steady. For the first time in months, the weight on my chest lifted. The marble floors no longer echoed like a prison. They sounded like freedom. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I closed my eyes and let it warm my face. The past was behind me. The truth had spoken, and justice had been served. A year, one single year. It sounds so short when you say it out loud, and yet, when you live it, it stretches into something vast. A year of breaking, a year of healing, a year of learning how to breathe again. After the trial ended, the world didn't simply return to normal. It never could. For months, I woke in the middle of the night, heart racing, tasting metal on my tongue as if the poison had followed me into my dreams. I'd sit at the edge of my bed, trembling, reminding myself that it was gone, that Conrad and Evelyn were gone, that the danger had ended. I went to therapy. I sat in sterile rooms with soft chairs and tissues on the table, speaking words I had never said aloud. I admitted how close I had come to giving up, how the betrayal had hollowed me out, and slowly, piece by piece, I stitched myself back together. At work, I thought I would falter, but instead, I rose. The fear that once chained me became fuel. I poured myself into every campaign, every pitch, every meeting. I stopped questioning my strength. I knew I had it because I had survived something designed to kill me. Within months, I was promoted, director of marketing, the youngest in the company's history. And then came the invitation, a keynote at the annual business conference, to stand on a stage, not just as a survivor, but as a leader. When the day came, I stood backstage, clutching my notes. The murmur of hundreds of voices washed over me like a tide. Bright lights cut across the stage, waiting. I took one breath and stepped forward. The applause rose as I reached the podium. I smiled faintly, steadying myself. Then I began. My name is Bianca Harrow, and I want to tell you a story. I spoke of the life I once had. The perfect marriage, the family dinners, the illusion of safety. I told them about the fainting spells, the metallic taste that haunted me, the way I thought I was losing my mind. I told them how I discovered the truth. Two people I trusted most were poisoning me, not just my body, but my life. The room grew still. Some leaned forward, wide-eyed. Others shook their heads in disbelief. I didn't spare the hard parts. I told them about the hospital, the vial found in Evelyn's locker, the trial where every secret was laid bare, the way Conrad looked at me when the cuffs closed around his wrists. And then I told them what came after. I thought betrayal had ended me, but it didn't. It remade me. It forced me to see myself not as someone who was broken, but as someone who had survived. The words spilled from me, raw and unpolished, but real, and that was enough. When I paused, the silence was thick, electric. Then came the applause, soft at first, then louder, until it filled the hall, rising like thunder. I let it wash over me, not as validation, but as proof. Proof that my story was not just mine. It was a warning, a light, a reminder that survival is possible, even in the darkest places. Afterward, a young woman stopped me in the lobby. Her eyes were wet, her voice trembling. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saying what I needed to hear." I squeezed her hand, and in that moment I understood. My pain had not been wasted. It had become a bridge from me to others still fighting their own battles. That night, I returned home. I poured myself a cup of coffee, steam curled upward, soft and harmless. For the first time in so long, I inhaled deeply, without fear. No metallic sting, no dread, only warmth. I smiled to myself, because the poison was gone. The people who had betrayed me were gone, and I was still here, alive, whole, stronger. And as I raised the cup, I whispered to myself, betrayal nearly killed me, but it also brought me back to life, stronger than ever before.